Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sunyavari Astyachari Satavine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sunyavari Astyachari Satavine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Haribo, Haribo. Haribo, Nitai Gora, Haribo, Nitai Gora. Haribo, Haribo. Haribo, Haribo. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Namacarya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Harinama Sankirtanam ki jai. Brihat Madanga ki. Ago Premanandi, O glorious to the assembled devotees, O glorious to Sri Guru and Garanga Namam Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Vastaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacharine. Nirvasesha Sanyavari Pastachari Shatani. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Today is Ekadashi here in France, and maybe the same wherever you are. So it's a very appropriate day, you could say, to be able to discuss the topics concerning Haridas Thakur, the Namacarya. So last week we covered several of the prominent pastimes of Haridas Thakur, together with some of the, you could say, the significant, whatever little realization comes their way, or whichever knowledge we receive from our acharyas. Some of the significant aspects of those particular pastimes of Haridas Thakur. And we also dealt fairly extensively for its, whatever, with his identity and his birth and the reasons for his appearing in this world. But I thought today we'll try to go over a little bit of the lessons to learn from the pastimes. Many of the pastimes we did not touch on last week. They may come up a little bit today in some of the lessons or some of the, let's say, applications how we're supposed to follow in the footsteps of Haridas Thakur. So, but let's look first of all a few prayers. Let me see if I can ascertain how to reach that space. I guess, where are we? Should be here. Here we are. I'm going to share a screen. It's going to be the same continuation like last week of the PowerPoint, if all goes well. Let me know if you can let me know if everything's visible on the screen.
Yes, Maharaj, everything's visible.
Are there other boxes blocking the screen?
No, it's fine.
No, I'm not sure. Rasika, what do I press to get rid of these various black boxes? Okay.
It's about as best as that one is.
Yeah, and the one at the bottom is okay, is it?
If it's okay for you,
it may go away after a while.
Maybe.
Okay, that's good. So no need for an introduction on this slide. I hope that everyone is aware that this is a beautiful deity of Srila Haridas Thakur in Siddhabakul in Jagannath Puri. And if ever you go there, or whoever's, let's say, presently managing or proprietors of that particular temple, so be it. But Haridas Thakur, at least from our perspective, is fully present there and gives his mercy. One day you may, if you haven't already, visit that wonderful place. Okay, so we'll move on with just the general pranams to Haridas Thakur. Namami Haridasam tam chaitanyam tang chatat prabhum Sangstitam apiyan murting sankhe kritva nanartaya. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Haridas Thakur and his master Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who danced with the body of Haridas Thakur on his lap. And that's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the first verse of the 11th chapter of the CC. And just a summary of some of the, you could say, the significant points about the unique nature of Haridas. Of course, these transcendental personalities are inconceivable in one sense as much as the Lord is inconceivable. Haridas Thakur is one of them. If one simply remembers the name of Haridas, not to mention his terrible ordeal at the hands of the Muslims, one becomes freed from one's own pain and misery. Most certainly, Srila Haridas Thakur was one of the closest and most important associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Dev. This is a summary of the chapter. Haridasa Stutivara Shune Jai Jana Avasya Milibe Tare Krishna Prema Dana. Anyone who hears the prayers of Haridas and the benediction he received will certainly obtain the treasure of Krishna Prema. This is not my statement. This is the verdict of all the scriptures. Simply by hearing topics about the devotees, one develops devotion for Krishna. That's one of the value of hearing the topics, even without lessons or the philosophical content necessarily being emphasized. Just hearing about their pastimes. We heard last week how Bhaktivinoda Thakur had described in the Bhakti Aloka that simply by hearing about these personalities like Haridas Thakur, one develops confidence, one develops courage, one develops determination and satisfaction. He says that I can hardly express the happiness that I feel by glorifying these great devotees. Lord Chaitanya himself would gain great pleasure in glorifying his devotees. And especially Haridas Thakur, as if he had many, many mouths, he would glorify Haridas Thakur over and over again. Is the nature of the pure devotee, just like, of course, not on the same quantitative level you can say, but they possess all the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in at least in certain proportion, vast majority of them. And they are, by their association, we become purified. So simply by hearing about them, one can develop. Develop means progress, progressive. As we develop a film, it's a progression. And the more we hear about the devotees, that's why we try to hear the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita or the other wonderful books describing our acharyas like Narottam Das Thakur, book by Sitala and others. So many Dasi and so many other wonderful books about our acharyas. It helps us to enter into their association. And in that association, we become purified. And the prayers, as mentioned here by Vrindavan Das Thakur, this particular statement is after the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. And we heard last week about Lord Chaitanya in the house of Srivas Thakur, the Mahaprakash pastimes, and how he revealed to everyone present the ordeal that Haridas Thakur went through with the Nawab and the Qazi, and how he was beaten tentatively. They were intending to kill him, of course, by whipping him to death. And that whole pastime was described and how the Lord protected Haridas Thakur. But we didn't describe or discuss in any way what, after describing that pastime, the Lord was asking Haridas Thakur, please ask for a benediction. The Lord asked all of his devotees, he would call them up and glorify them and ask them for a benediction, which different devotees would ask for different benedictions. So Haridas Thakur, related to his previous birth, if you want to say that, as Lord Brahma, when he tried to steal the calves from the cowherd boys and interfered with their lunch or their prasadam like that, he asked for the boon or the benediction that he could simply survive or exist on the remnants of the Lord's devotees. Even he didn't care whether he took birth over and over and over again. He prayed that may I be born in the house, even as a dog in the house of a Vaishnava. I just want to serve the Vaishnavas, basically. And of course, the value of, I'm talking, not, it shouldn't be a whimsical thing, but the value of the remnants, especially of advanced devotees, pure devotees of the Lord, and the dust of their lotus feet and the water that's washed their feet, Lord Chaitanya describes these as being extremely potent substances to awaken devotion, pure devotion to the Lord. So he's exemplifying this in his prayer or his request of the Lord. He feels himself unqualified because much of the pastimes of Haridas Thakur are manifesting on the basis of his tremendous feeling of repentance for having tried to interfere with the pastimes of the Lord. So that's a subject we may touch on later. Let's see. We'll move on. Just have to go down the bottom, right? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then told everyone, all glory to Haridas Thakur, and chant the holy name of Hari. Saying this, he personally began to dance. Now this, we're going forward here, this is in relationship to the departure of Haridas Thakur. We didn't touch on that last week. I don't think we touched it at all. It's a very significant pastime of Haridas, and we'll touch on it a little bit later on. So this is at the conclusion of that pastime, basically speaking. Everyone began to chant, all glories to Haridas Thakur, who revealed the importance of chanting the holy name of the Lord. That, of course, is, you could say, in one sense, the most significant aspect about Haridas Thakur's service to the Lord, that he revealed the importance of chanting the holy name. Prabhupada writes about this. The 20th branch of the Chaitanya tree was Haridas Thakur. His character was wonderful. He used to chant the holy name of Krishna 300,000 times a day without fail. Of course, in his last days, he was apparently unable to complete his rounds. When Lord Chaitanya asked him, what is your sickness? He was apparently sick. It appeared from the physical point of view. He was lying down when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to see him, and the Lord asked, what is your sickness? And Haridas Thakur replied that actually my sickness is that I am unable to finish my rounds. Well, Lord Chaitanya said, you've already achieved your purpose in chanting, and now your body is very old. It's not required that you have to keep up this vow of 300,000 names a day. But Haridas Thakur would not hear of it. When our very wonderful sannyas friend Kadamba Maharaj passed away a couple of years ago or more in Vrindavan, he continued even up to the last, I don't know, last day, I don't know, but even if it took him all day long lying there, he would complete 16 rounds of japa. He was determined not to, let that, maybe more rounds, but chanting the holy name. So Prabhupada writes in his purport, certainly the chanting of 300,000 holy names of the Lord is wonderful. No ordinary person can chant so many names, nor should one artificially imitate Haridas Thakur's behavior. And that's 300,000 names. I mean, we normally say 3 lakhs, which normally a lakh, we usually equate it with 64 rounds. It's not literally 64 rounds, but it's almost 64 rounds, maybe 61 or something. I don't know exactly, you can calculate. But he was chanting pretty much day and night, you could say. When it comes to chanting, now this is from a book called Prema Vivarta. It's a book by Jagannatha Pandit on the glories. This chapter is the glories of the holy name. The whole book is about the process. It's a very, book which really touches all the various stages of devotional service. A beautiful book. When it comes to chanting, the topmost devotee is Srila Haridas Thakur, and it was he who propagated the supreme truth about the holy name. He preached as well as practiced chanting the holy name. Hence he is the Acharya of the holy name, or the Namacarya. Whoever chants the Lord's name, following in Srila Haridas Thakur's footsteps, will achieve the highest perfection in it. That's a very wonderful benediction. Of course, what it means to follow in the footsteps of Haridas Thakur, we don't imitate, as we heard in the previous verse or statement by Prabhupada. It's often, there has been, and even during Prabhupada's time, some devotees did want to imitate Haridas Thakur. Prabhupada gave them a kind of an opportunity, and they, at least at that time, they did not manage to sustain their endeavors. Imitation is not recommended. We have to act according to our particular stage in devotional service. And there's a verse, we touched on it last week. Yantara namalao karatolsi sevam achirat pabitabe krishnaracharan. Chant the Hare Krishna mantra continuously and render service to the Tulsi plant by watering her and offering prayers to her. In this way, you will very soon get the opportunity to be sheltered at the lotus feet of Krishna. Excuse me. So that's one way. Continual chanting and rendering service to Tulsi. These two activities are very much a part of Haridas Thakur's, service to the Lord, to the world. Prabhupada writes in a purport in the Antya-lila, Haridas Thakur used to chant the name on his beads 300,000 times daily. Yes, because it's 300,000 names. Throughout the entire day and night, he would chant the 16 names of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. One should not, however, imitate Haridas Thakur, for no one else can chant the holy names 300,000 times a day. I remember one time, I can't understand how on earth he chanted 300,000 times the Mahamantra. And it's a fact, it is inconceivable, because it doesn't mean that. It means 300,000 names, 16 names in the Mahamantra. So that's how you get about 180, 90 rounds or so, whatever it is, a day of the Mahamantra. But if you had to chant, 300,000 mantras, well, what to say, you'd have to chant a mantra in about half a minute, a round rather, in about half a minute. Nothing's impossible, it'd be pretty difficult. Says chanting is for the Mukta Purush or liberated soul. We can follow his example, however. So Prabhupada says the Mukta Purush, liberated, and we may not be on that level, but we follow his example, Prabhupada says, by chanting 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna on beads every day and offering respect to the Tulsi plant. This is not at all difficult for anyone, and the process of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra with a vow before the Tulsi plant has such great spiritual potency that simply by doing this one can become spiritually strong. Therefore, we request the members of the Hare Krishna movement to follow Haridas Thakur's example rigidly. What is the example? Sticking to the vow, and of course also worshipping Tulsi Devi and chanting as much as we can. And there's more to that, which we'll touch on later. Chanting 16 rounds does not take much time. It usually takes between 1.5 hours and maximum 3 hours. Some devotees, average 2 is the norm. Some devotees chant a bit slower. and offering respects to Tulsi plant is not difficult. The process has immense spiritual potency. One should not miss this opportunity. I'm just going back to the previous verse here, where we see imitation. We shouldn't imitate, but we follow. Following means das anudas. It means following the representative Haridas Thakur, one's particular spiritual master, specifically Srila Prabhupada, as a Siksha Guru. In the Anchalila Prabhupada, this is a verse and then purport, I believe. No, it's maybe just a purport. In our Krishna conscious movement, yes, it's just purport. We are teaching our followers to chant the Hare Krishna mantra continuously on beads. Even those who are not accustomed to this practice are advised to chant at least 16 rounds on their beads so they may be trained. Prabhupada says two things here: continuously, which indicates somebody who's really got a taste for the holy name, and those who are not accustomed to this practice at least chant 16 rounds. Now, some of us may not be doing that, so as we heard earlier on, this is this process it develops. Our chanting should develop, and our application should develop. So we don't start at the end, we start at the beginning and work towards. We don't come to 16 and finish full stop. That's not the process. Maybe we have so much service, maybe that's our situation, but there's no limit. This is just you can say, a ground foundation for those who really want to come to the pure platform of chanting, to follow the directions of the pure devotee of the Lord. Nevertheless, if they begin chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and rendering service unto the Tulsi plant, they will very soon be able to surrender. One's real duty is to surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna. But if one is unable to do so, he should adopt this process. So you see, it's almost like there's, it's not like the chant is the end. It's the beginning, middle, and end of everything because it's Krishna. But the regulative, the reverential, the disciplinary approach in numbers and times and all these things, techniques and vows and everything, is not exactly the ultimate point. It's like the letter of the law, but it's the spirit of the law, which is the essence, and that's complete surrender to Krishna, whatever Krishna wants. If he wants us to do that, so be it. But ultimately, that's the mood, it's the attitude which is to be, say, achieved or to be aimed for. But if one is able to do that, which means full surrender to the Lord, he should adopt this process as introduced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his most confidential servant, Namacarya, Srila Haridas Thakur. This is the way to achieve success in Krishna consciousness. So as we have reached the goal, so this is both the process and amazing enough, it's also the goal because everything's in the holy name. And when our chanting becomes mature and pure, then automatically everything is revealed. That's surrender. When we learn the technique of surrendering to the holy name or surrendering to Krishna in this way, through surrendering to the spiritual master's directions, then one can progress in spiritual life and get the mercy of the Lord, the holy name. Move on. It is essential, however, that everyone fulfill a specific vow to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Therefore, we have prescribed in our society that all our students must chant at least 16 rounds daily. Prabhupada, you could say he emphasizes this point quite a lot. It's not just a specific thing, but he's talking about students, and students are not just casual here, of course. They're devotees who've actually taken shelter of Srila Prabhupada as their guide, as their spiritual master. In that way, taking siksha from him, taking guidance from Srila Prabhupada. And we know, or we must probably have heard at least, that Srila Prabhupada, very often he would quote Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's famous purport in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita to Vyavasayatmaka would hear that this faith in the instruction of the spiritual master, to follow the instruction of my spiritual master is my sadhana as well as my sadhya, my practice and goal. whatever else happens, he lets so be it. Whether I end up in hell or in heaven, it doesn't matter. All that matters to me is the instruction of my spiritual master. So similarly here, Prabhupada said, we are prescribed in our society. Students must chant at least 16 rounds daily. So the devotees take that to heart. This is our, and Prabhupada said this was basically his success, was his faith in his spiritual master's instruction as his life and soul. He said, the instruction of my spiritual master is my life and soul. So what to do? Sometimes we desist for various reasons, whatever they may be, from strictly following. But the atonement or the way of rectifying that is just to get back on track again as soon as possible. It's not that we give up. We get back on there again as much as quickly as we can, or when the circumstances are more favorable, whatever you want to call it. But somehow though we try to, reinstate ourselves in that situation. Such chanting must be offenseless. Now Prabhupada's introducing here a quality in the chanting. Must be offenseless in order to be of high quality. We shouldn't be satisfied with low quality. Just like with anything in life, we should always, prefer the higher quality, whether it's food or whether it's whatever, association, whatever it may be. Mechanical chanting. Now Prabhupada's referring here to mechanical chanting to offensive chanting, whether it's in Namacarya or Namavalli, to offensive chanting, chanting without actual pure devotion. It's not as powerful as chanting the holy name without offenses. Lord Chaitanya himself said that, the reason he doesn't have a taste for chanting the holy name is because of offenses. So offenses, we're not going to go through the offenses, but I presume that most of you are familiar with the offenses against the holy name. They're usually discussed at initiation ceremonies, and other times Prabhupada discusses them many times in purports and in lectures, and in especially initiation lectures, etc. There's many commentaries on this. It is basically speaking from the practical point of view. There's more to it, but from the practical point of view, it is the difference between Namaparada and Shuddhanam. Chanting Shuddhanam basically means without offense. Of course, it's not just a kind of without offense. There's a state of positivity there as well. There's a state of relationship there for one who's actually chanting the pure name. It's not just some kind of mechanical imposition or controlling the tendency to commit offenses or something, but it's coupled with an awakening of a relationship with the name, a relationship with Krishna. And we have to, Prabhupada says, we have to follow the great personalities. Haridas Thakur, he was chanting. So now a little bit on techniques. We're going to touch on techniques a little bit. You hear a lot about techniques. Haridas Thakur, he was chanting very loudly. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted very loudly. So what more evidence do you want? My Guru Maharaj chanted loudly. We are chanting loudly. So it's described, I don't know, Jiva Goswami maybe, describes that mantras bear their fruit according to the direction which we get from the spiritual master. The spiritual master gives us direction. And if we don't follow that direction in the execution of chanting, then we can't expect to get the fruit. It's not a mechanical thing. It's a very personal thing, and the pure devotees, they give us this direction. Now, there may be some specific or detailed direction given to certain devotees, but we shouldn't speculate on that. So what does it mean to chant loudly? It doesn't mean you shout. Well, that may sometimes, in the forest or something, you may do that, I don't know. But in the temple or in the home, we have to chant according to the situation we're in, but at least it should be audible. In another place, Prabhupada says it should be heard by oneself and those nearby at least. And when we're chanting with others, of course, we shouldn't chant so loud that we drown everyone else out or disturb their chanting. There should be some consideration. There must be consideration for those around us, so we don't disturb others. But audibly, it means there are 3 types of japa, and it said that Haridas Thakur would sometimes chant all 3. But at least our relationship with Haridas, we primarily relate to his audible chanting, which is, which we see in the case of the deliverances we heard last week of Lakir Hirabai, the prostitute, who then became a pure devotee. We see the same incident in a place called Harinadi, where Haridas Thakur village in Bengal, where he went, and there were many smarter Brahmins there, and they challenged him like anything against this loud chanting. Who was given this all? We're in the Vedas, and they were challenging like anything. What is this loud chanting? This is nonsense. And Haridas Thakur quoted many verses, but they wouldn't hear anything of it whatsoever. They said they would even challenge him with things like, it is said at the end of the Kali Yuga, a Shudra will be so-called preaching the philosophy, the knowledge. So we see that the Kali Yuga, even now, that such a thing is happening. We don't have to wait till the end of Kali. It's happening right in front of our eyes, they said. They were very offensive. So Haridas Thakur left that place, which is one of the things which you do. If you hear blasphemy, you don't hear it. That's one of the lessons, of course, from last week. Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya says, so that's a lecture of Prabhupada's. And he wrote a letter in 1970 to one of his disciples chanting this. These are, you could say, related to the techniques, the externals, to help us. What is the purpose of the externals? What is the purpose even of temples in one sense? They have varied purposes, but one of the purposes is to facilitate the actual purpose of devotional service, which is to develop an internal relationship with the Lord, and thereon, of course, with his energies, etc. So this is another technique in chanting which may help us. It's a very simple one and a very well-known one. Chanting japa should be done early in the morning with full concentration, preferably during the Brahma Muhurta time, the hour and a half before sunrise normally. Concentrate fully on the sound vibration of the mantra, so time and concentration, pronunciation, pronouncing each word distinctly, and gradually your speed in chanting will increase naturally. So there we have time, concentration, pronunciation, and speed in regards to techniques. Do not worry so much about chanting fast. Most important is the hearing, and hearing is the most important, as Prabhupada says here. A devotee should always be grave and silent, which means that he only discusses topics relating to Krishna consciousness. Yes, spend your time chanting and reading and taking Krishna prasadam, and automatically your tongue will come under control. We all know the challenges there. We're not just sitting around with each other, all day long, chanting and hearing, which, sounds nice. We probably couldn't do it anyway. Disturbance of mind is very strong. But therefore, we have other things we have to do in our life with the family or with occupations or with studies or maintenance in the household or whatever it may be. Different things which occupy our time. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur said the practical application of this is whenever we do get time, we try not to waste it. We try to utilize that time in nicely hearing and chanting the holy name, pastimes of the Lord, etc. If you sincerely engage 24 hours daily in devotional service, according to the instructions of the spiritual master, chant daily 16 rounds, attend the arti ceremony of Lord Krishna, associate with the devotees, and adhere strictly to the regulated principles, then Krishna will reveal himself personally to you. That's quite a strong benediction Srila Prabhupada gives. There's not necessarily a time factor involved there. It's not necessarily a complete description of how he reveals himself. It is a development. It's a gradual progress. Srila Prabhupada writes in one purport, when chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, in the beginning one may commit many offenses, which are called Namabas and Namaparad. Namabas chanting is also, it's not pure, so therefore it's still considered to be tinted with offenses, even if it's the offense, for instance, again, in regards to offenses of inattention. That will be possible, but in Namabas that is there. But by associating with pure devotees of the Lord or following their directives to chant, then gradually the heart can become, by the grace of Krishna, it becomes stable, and one can actually start to focus on the sound of the holy name more and more. We may have mentioned last week, I don't know, but Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj says that it is impossible, maybe Bhaktivinoda, I can't remember, that it's impossible for the individual, for the jiva to independently or on their own can overcome the illusion of inattention. I'm just trying to remember the verse. It is only possible by the mercy of the Lord. Therefore, one should fervently pray for the Lord's mercy. There is no other way. This is an important point, that we cannot on our own. So if we're actually sincere, we hear that when we come to the next section, we should pray, because on our own we cannot overcome these difficulties. In this stage, there is no possibility of achieving perfect love of Krishna by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. In other words, our goal at this stage, in practically speaking, Shuddhanam, to become pure in our chanting. It takes time as a development. Therefore, we must chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Principles of the above verse, which we'll come to as actually below verse in this case, Trinada Pisanichena Dororivas Hishnuna. One should note in this connection that chanting, again some more practical tips here, chanting involves the activities of the upper and lower lips, as well as the tongue. All three must be engaged in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Note that the words Hare Krishna, sometimes those go Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's Hare. This is the address of the Lord's internal potency. Hare Krishna. Should be very distinctly pronounced and heard. Sometimes one mechanically produces a hissing sound. I don't know. Hissing. Sometimes you hear all kinds of variations or different types of sound vibrations. A hissing sound instead of chanting with the proper pronunciation, with the help of the lips. Chanting is very simple, but one must practice it seriously. As Rupa Goswami himself describes in Nectar of Instruction, Kidvadaradunudinam. We should chant the holy name very carefully and constantly. This is the method of curing the disease in the heart. Vrindavan Das Thakur says, what only Thakur is able to constantly chant the names of Hari and take shelter of the pure holy names without committing offences, and thus his contamination of ignorance, which is the root of material enjoyment, is totally uprooted. As a result of serving Haridas Thakur and receiving his mercy, the Supreme Lord becomes obliged. So we serve Haridas Thakur by following in his footsteps, as Prabhupada mentioned earlier on. So you could say by hearing about him trying to follow his example of how to serve the holy name, try to a few of the things we've mentioned already. And now we're going to, this is a verse you might like to take a note, a picture. You will not find it if you read Harinam Chintamani unless you have the full version with the Bengali as well as the English. I do have it, I believe, somewhere with the diacritic marks, but I don't have it on this one. This is in the Harinam Chintamani, which, of course, is revealed to the world by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but it's basically Bhaktivinoda Thakur is revealing an essential, you could say, guidebook for those who really want to go deeply into this on the how to remove the offenses in our chanting, how to chant in a way which is pleasing to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and so on. And Lord Chaitanya, just like he did with Ramananda Roy, he was asking questions, and Ramananda Roy was speaking the very answers which, basically ultimately come from Lord Chaitanya. So, in the case of Ramananda from Lord Chaitanya also. And here we see the same thing, that Haridas Thakur is basically responding to Lord Chaitanya's request of him to speak on the holy name. So this is the nectar, or the touchstone of the holy name, as revealed by Haridas Thakur through the media of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. O Mahaprabhu, he says, Das aparada yena hridayena pase, kripakari Mahaprabhu majina marase, is a verse which you can keep along with the next, I think the next verse, I'm not sure, but I think is the next verse which we'll see. You can keep this verse with you if you want. It's a good meditation. It's a prayer. It's very practical. O Mahaprabhu, please be merciful to me, so that the 10 offenses never touch my heart, and I can always remain absorbed in the rasa of the holy name. It'd be nice. Meditating or repeating is one thing, but in consciousness and taking shelter of Haridas, Thakur, following in his footsteps, etc. Then by the grace of Mahaprabhu, we can actually become free of these offenses, which shroud or cover our chanting, absorb our mind during the chanting, etc. And by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, develop a taste for the holy name. So this is the verse, excuse me, the central verse, you could say, in our Krishna consciousness movement, in the Adi Lila, in the 17th chapter of CC. Krishnadas Kaviraj says, raising my hands, I declare, everyone please hear me, string this verse on the thread of the holy name, and wear it on your neck for continuous remembrance. Now that's not referring to the previous verse, Das Aparada Yena Napashi. This is referring to the key verse in many ways. So we're only touching the surface here. We've heard a few of the externals. We hear about concentrating on one mantra at a time, in the place you chant, and the people you chant with, the way you clean. All these different techniques are, or let's say, environmental situations, external or mental situations are there, and they're all very valuable, and they should not be underscored. But now we're going to look at another aspect. Maybe this verse is the key verse in terms of our transformation, you could say, and we won't have much time to go into much detail, even if we were qualified to do so, which really we're not anyway. But probably with our lack of qualification, we probably still won't reach the the point where we'd like to, but we'll try to touch on it at least. Excuse me, I got some mucus. Although the temperature here today is supposed to, as I mentioned earlier, maybe it's supposed to be about 95 or 96 degrees Fahrenheit or 36 degrees centigrade today. So it's going to be pretty warm, and we're going out on walking Harinam today, I've heard. Hare Krishna. So he says, raising my hands, Krishnadas Kaviraj, that's a picture of Krishnadas Kaviraj. He says, raising my hands, I declare, everyone please hear me. String this verse on the thread of the holy name and wear it on your neck for continuous remembrance. It's a pretty amazing statement. And what is that verse? I'm sure most of you are familiar and know what it is already. Here it is. Trinadapi sunichena kirtaniya sadaharihi. Most of those, I think, say this every day. And we just have to become a little conscious of what we're saying and try to enter into the meaning of this stanza. Lord Chaitanya spoke this in his Sikshastakam, of course. One who thinks himself lower than the grass, who is more tolerant than a tree, and who does not expect personal honor, but is always prepared to give all respect to others, can very easily always chant the holy name of the Lord. So today we're going to try to speak a little bit on this, because this is it's going a little bit more deeper than just techniques which facilitate the entry within. A relationship without, we certainly have. And there we have so many various activities to engage us, Sankirtan, deity worship, various practical forms of devotional service which are required. I don't know if I've got a quote here, but Prabhupada writes in the Nectar Devotion, maybe it's coming up here, I'm not sure, I can't remember, but that those who are not really serious about making this transformation, then it's required they engage in devotional service to a pure devotee, because that will gradually help us. In fact, our old sadhana Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj has described that sadhana, or the practice of devotional service, means that which helps us to develop our taste for the holy name. And if the sadhana doesn't help us to develop a taste for the holy name, he says it's an impediment on the path of devotion. Chanting, congregational chanting particularly, is, he says, the emperor of all sadhana. It is the only infallible means of success. So obviously, taking those words to heart, that we really would do well. It would behoove us to try to chant more, and with others as well, congregational chanting. It's very powerful. This is the Yuga Dharma, and because we have our own personal japa, this is our confidential, you could say, cultivation of our relationship with Krishna. And in one sense, japa is much more austere. So penance is required. And then we'll come on to that in a minute. Let's see, where are we? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, Saraswati. Now, I do have the reference, but I couldn't find it just a few minutes before the class. I noted there was no direct reference there, but I have somewhere. It's certainly in Amrita Vani or whatever, that compilation of statements of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. It's in there, and you can probably find the reference. Here are the words spoken by, he says, this is Bhaktisiddhanta. Here are the words spoken by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do two things today. And first, we're going to run through, I don't know if we have time, we're going to go through the lessons. That will be the cap up at the end. But we're going to go through now a little bit. And as I said, we're probably only going to be touching more or less the surface. We're on the surface and we want to go under. We want to go deep in the ocean. Remaining on the surface of devotional service is risky. You know, it's like a fish on the ocean. A fish, if it's near the surface, can easily get caught in a fisherman's net. It can be washed ashore. It can be captured by a bird of some kind. Of course, the fish don't get evaporated, but the water may get evaporated. You know, fish doesn't really get evaporated, but still, the example, water on the surface can be evaporated. So when one goes deep in the ocean, there may be other dangers down there, but you're not going to get caught in the fisherman's net, generally speaking, when you're way down in the ocean, or washed up onto the shore, or evaporated, or caught by a bird. You may get caught by a shark. There are, you know, every stage of our progress in devotional service, we have to know what the, you know, necessary, let's say, challenges are to make progress, as well as the positive practical application at various stages. Also dangers that have to be avoided. There are dangers at every step, even up to the point we see of, for instance, Bharat Maharaj, even though he was basically on the level of Bhava almost. But still, to show an example, even there we shouldn't take it for granted. And he fell victim to a deer, or not so much the deer, but to his attachment to the deer. We often put the blame on the object or the person, but that's an obstacle in itself. It's actually not the real issue here. It's our attachment to it, or our misconception about it, or whatever it is. Not so much the object itself, but the fact that we're disturbed by it or attracted by it or whatever. Repulsion and attraction, these two, we have to rise above. So that's often the problem rather than the object itself. We have a tendency to blame the object, but that's not really the developed understanding. That may be there in the material sense of the term, but in the inner sense, which is what we really want, we want to become strong. We want to go deep into our devotional service, not just on the surface. It is necessary, he says. Here are the words. Lord Chaitanya said, it is necessary to be humbler than a blade of grass if one is really anxious to take the name of Godhead. One never supplicates another, means approaches another in humility, unless one realizes his own littleness. So this is a common, say subject, a common, not the word, but a common type of statement of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj throughout his teachings is to constantly remember our littleness. Prabhupada will bring this up many times as well. Now, Haridas Thakur is a personification, of course, of this humility personified. And we've heard some of that already. I mean, if we go on and on, if we were able to, describing the unbearable. I mean, even Lord Chaitanya was almost embarrassed by his humility. It was like unbearable almost. For Lord Chaitanya, he was just a personification of humility. Basically, Haridas Thakur was a personification of this key verse, Trinadapi Sinichena. He was always feeling himself the lowest of the low. We won't have time today, but if you go into the final pastimes of his departure from this world, you'll see just how and this is at the end of his life, where you kind of come to the perfection, if you want to call it that, whatever that level it is in one's life. But still, he's seeing himself as lower than a worm in stool. There are millions of devotees who are fit to sit on my head. I'm not qualified to even be near a devotee. He's just, feeling, and it's not just words to attract, name and fame or something, but he's actually feeling like this. We can't imitate that. But this type of humility would naturally dawn in the heart if we're actually applying the process in due course of time. When we pray for the help of other persons, he says, let me say, no. When we pray for the help of other persons, we consider ourselves helpless. Interesting. Again, it depends a little on attitude, but in principle, yes. If we pray for the help of others, we beg others for help. That means we're helpless. We don't know what to do. This is a stage of, let's say, entering in, revealing your mind in confidence, being honest about one's situation. It is a very important part of the key for entering into the recesses of our real heart itself, to attract, you could say, the grace of the Lord, to remove the curtains. A certain work cannot be done by myself. It is therefore necessary to take the help of others. We shouldn't be proud. So pride, humility, kind of opposite sides of the same coin in one sense, you could say. That we're proud, can't really be called humble. We let go of that pride. We may have so many karmic qualifications, or we think we do, compared to others, but they're pretty insignificant, really. And even if they are there, not insignificant, but they're very small. They come from Krishna anyway. They're not ours. Everything comes from Krishna. So this kind of understanding, simple and theoretical it may be, can help us sometimes not get carried away with circumstances, carried away in relationships with others, carried away with the pride in so many ways, ending up in arguments, all these different things. A certain work cannot be done by myself, so we shouldn't be so proud. As if we should take help from others, and we should try to engage. If I want to do the work at all, we should try to take, may I take the help of others. And Prabhupada emphasized this many times. Ask those to do it, they do it wrongly, and he said, why didn't you ask me how to do it properly? Any work that can be done only by 5 persons acting together is not possible to be performed by one's own unaided efforts. We may have this tendency, I think I have this tendency myself, that we try to take it on ourselves, and sometimes we know how difficult it is in this the circumstances we're in, but the principle is there. We shouldn't be a miser. We should be open. Many of these, let's say, characteristics of humility, which we're touching on here, are overlapping, for instance, with showing respect to others and not expecting any respect from others. Manadena. That they're overlapping, they're kind of entwined in each other. It's just different angles of perception of the mood or the attitude that we need to develop. These tidings flow to us from the lotus feet of Sri Gurudev. Sri Gaurasundar has told us to call upon the name of Godhead, which means that he also told us to be humbler than a blade of grass when we call upon the name of Godhead. If we call upon Godhead for converting him into our servant, we're praying to him, give me this, give me that. I mean, giving us pure devotional service, you could say, is not exactly the same thing. But most people, when they call upon the Lord in this way, they're asking him, oh, help remove my problems. Oh, please may I have this, and this, or so can have this, and this. This type of supplication of the Lord is a little bit, say, is not pure. It's not the subject which is emphasized here. It may be there in the beginning. Sri Gaurasundar has told us to call on the name, which means that he also told us to be humbler. If we call upon the Lord for converting him into our servant, in other words, make him our one who provides, our provider, in other words, like a servant basically, which is what most people do in the world. They're always begging for something from the Lord. We cannot perceive the quality of humility greater than that of a blade of grass. Now, it may be the beginning, but it's not greater than that, because as soon as you get it, you're kind of like, that's what you want. You're not asking for love, pure love of God. You're not asking for selfless devotion. You're asking for whatever pleases you, my Lord. We're asking for something either grossly material or something in between. So being, more humble than the blade of grass is not that, when you get what you want, you pop back up again. No, not like that. One remains forevermore in that humble position, that position of das, anu das. When Prabhupada was in Paris in maybe 1971 or early 70s, Haridas Prabhu would ask him, what is humility? And Prabhupada gave a very practical definition. You should know that nothing, no matter what it is in this world, can protect you. Nothing. Absolutely nothing in this world. Only Krishna can really protect us. And in that mood, he said, this is humility. There are other aspects of humility, and we'll touch on those in a few minutes if time allows. External exhibition of humility is not that quality of lowliness which makes one humbler than the blade of grass. Not, in other words, trying to make yourself look like you're no good for nothing. Huh? Oh, Prabhu, I'm the most fallen. I'm a wretched creature. I'm not qualified for anything. You can go on and on like this, but it depends. It has to be seen what the attitude behind it all is. Huh? Here, Bhakti said, it's not that particular quality, external exhibition. This is internal. The externals may, and we'll see in a minute what that means, the externals. It's not just speaking about humility, or what one thinks is humility, in order to be accepted or to think that you're advanced or whatever it may be, or to even avoid service sometimes. Mere show of humility is nothing but insincerity or hypocrisy. That manner of calling which is responded to by one's subordinate does not reach Godhead. So, if it's just like in a social interaction, Prabhu's so humble, wow. He's, it may or may not be true. So you have to understand what humility means, at least in a practical way, because he is the supreme independent, perfect, self-conscious entity who is subject to none. Krishna is not subjected to our exhibition or let's say, the recognition of conditioned souls or other conditioned souls who don't really have that level of perception or realization in their heart to detect it. It is necessary to fully establish one's individuality in the state of guileless humility. These are all, let's say, objectives. To fully establish one's individuality in the state of guileless humility. In other words, there's another state of humility, not that we imitate. Every one of us has a particular characteristic, both materially and spiritually, and to recognize that, and we'll see in a minute, methods how we can do that, even in the material world, not to just simply condemn yourself on an external or a sentimental way, but to see humility as to utilize whatever we've got in the service of Krishna. And that will go on because that's coming up in a minute, I think. If this is not done, one's prayer does not reach the perfect autocrat. So we have to understand what is our position and how to offer that in the service of the Lord. We want to offer that to the Lord. I remember Srila Maharaj, when the godbrothers, not the godbrother of Prabhupada, one of Prabhupada's disciples. Well, he was such a jolly devotee and such a sweet devotee, but he left the world 20 years ago. But he said, just be yourself and just offer that. So what a practical aspect. And one of the key, we've mentioned briefly, but the key aspect Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj emphasizes, there's so many statements similar to this, service to the Guru. How we develop humility. In other words, true humility means to develop a taste. We're jumping a little bit forward actually here. Developing a taste for chanting and to become a true servant of the holy name. That in itself is quite a deep statement, because the words true humility, developing a taste. Without humility, you cannot have a taste. And true humility is when you do have a taste. So there's a little, you could say, overlapping there. But the key here is that we serve the Guru. We chant under the direction of the Guru. And that is humility, and that naturally, if we see in the Bhagavatam, you see it everywhere, how the process of devotional service unfolds through service to the pure devotee of the Lord, practicing guidance, taking guidance and following their instructions, that gradually the heart becomes cleansed. One gets realizations as we associate with the devotees, as we see our own anarthas coming to the service, we take shelter of Krishna. This is humility, by the way. I mention it now because we might forget it later on. But the humility isn't that we try to fight against it ourselves. there can be an element of that. We try to do our part, but as Krishna said to Arjuna, you fight, but you depend on me. He didn't just say fight, and he didn't just say depend on me. He said, you fight, but depend on me. It's this mood of turning to Krishna. Whatever Krishna has given us, we try to utilize it. We try, with whatever capacity we have, to do what we sincerely believe is the right thing. But we have to also depend on Krishna, knowing we're not capable. It's not possible. This material energy is very, very strong. The living entity can't possibly overcome it by his own endeavor. Krishna himself says to Arjuna, only those who surrender to me can cross beyond it. So we take shelter of Krishna to overcome these problems. We don't take shelter of logic, reason, intelligence, or any other relative factor, or past experience, or anything, whatever it is. We try to do the right thing accordingly, but at the same time we take shelter of praying, taking shelter of the Lord. And we already heard, with a heart of supplication, a heart of feeling oneself helpless, a heart of understanding that we're not capable on our own. Service to Guru and the Vaishnavas, it should be it says is the gateway through which we develop such taste. And now the more, you could say, relatively easier to understand. Service to Guru and the Vaishnavas is the gateway through which we develop such taste. There is a gateway. We don't have a taste because we're still on the other side of the gate. To enter on the other side of pure devotion, this is the gateway, is service. Service to the Vaishnavas, to Guru and Vaishnavas. Give up duplicity. A few standard statements here. Give up duplicity. That means, we have a different motive within our hearts. We're saying one thing, doing one thing, but we're desiring to attain another thing, either name, fame, prestige, or some material return of something. I am a servant of Guru and Krishna. This is a very important point, which sounds so simple. But if we have time, we'll see a few more points on that. Or we won't see them, you'll hear them. Showing compassion to others. All this is condensed, you can say, into a few sentences, which showing compassion to others, by the way, is basically assisting the pure devotee in whatever service he requires. We may have our own ideas, but they're tinged with our own attachments, our own whatever imperfections. So we try to offer that in the service of the pure devotee who knows what will please Krishna. Preaching and compassion ultimately means what pleases Krishna. Real compassion is what pleases Krishna. And that, of course, in our level, on our platform, it means basically trying to engage others in devotional service. It's one of the aspects of showing respect to others, to try to engage others in service, not just keep it to yourself. So showing respect to others, because everyone's part and parcel of Krishna. Everyone is a servant of Guru and Krishna, ultimately. Some have realized it, some have not. So a devotee tries to engage others in the service of Guru and Krishna, and that's compassion. Not just yourself only. That's good, but it's real compassion when we try to engage others. Simply serving, I think I should, English doesn't matter. Simple serving the mass devotees with love and devotion, our taste for chanting the holy names will increase, and we will be qualified to chant the holy names. These are some famous statements of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. We should also remember that we cannot possibly learn to chant if we do not offer sincere and loving service to our spiritual master, who is an acharya of the holy name. When by serving Guru and Krishna, the heart becomes purified, the Lord's pure name will appear in the heart. Otherwise, we will continue to commit offenses against the name. So you can see how important this is, and this is the gateway to, because pure chanting of the holy name is not within our grasp exactly. It's when we evoke, or when we deserve the mercy of the Lord and the pure devotees of the Lord. So service to the Guru and the spiritual master, the Vaishnavas, is the key element to attract or to become endeared to the Lord. Not endeared to us, which way around, whatever. And the Lord removes those obstacles on our path, or gives us the realization by which we let go of our unnecessary anarthas, attachments, and we feel repentant about our offenses against the holy name, and beg the Lord in a repentant heart to please release me, as Haridas Thakur Dasa Aparada, Yena Hidayena Pasha, we heard her on Kripakari, may the taste for the holy name develop like that, and maybe be freed of offenses. And service, okay, quite in order, but yeah, this is what we heard earlier. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended that everyone chant the Hare Krishna mantra just to cleanse the dust from the heart. If the dust of the heart is cleansed away, then one can actually understand the importance of the holy name. For persons who are not inclined to clean the dust from their heart, in other words, those who want to stay on the mechanical platform or whatever, the compromised platform, the conditional platform, from their heart and want to keep things as they are, it is not possible to derive the transcendental result of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. You may get some other result, freedom from stress or living liberation, but that's not the actual transcendental result. The transcendental result of chanting the holy name is Krishna Pramartha Mahan, is pure love of Godhead. These other achievements are just secondary. They're not of significance in the absolute realm. One should therefore be encouraged, Prabhupada says, to develop his service attitude. Actually, this is coming from Rupa Goswami. This is Prabhupada's commentary on Nectar Devotion. It's right there in the book. One should be encouraged to develop his service attitude toward the Lord. This will help him to chant without any offense. And so, under the guidance of the spiritual master, the disciple is trained simultaneously to render service and, at the same time, to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. As soon as one develops his spontaneous service attitude, he can immediately understand, interesting, he can immediately understand the transcendental nature of the holy name, of transcendental nature of the holy names of the Mahamantra. Nice, I don't know the page number. You can, if you have the time, you can make a quick note there and try to look it up. Well, that brings us to the end of that PowerPoint presentation, and we're back online. If there's anyone left, if you're not bored out of your socks by now, we'll continue for a little longer. I think we've got, what's the time now? Let me see. We've got about 40 minutes or something like that. So we're going to go, let's see, into this. As we tried to mention, Haridas Thakur's intention is not just to clock up numbers, but this is his service to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his service to every living entity, to engage or inspire others to engage in the Yuga Dharma of chanting the holy names. And he is, Lord, through him, as we heard earlier on, the Lord has preached the glories of the holy name, etc. I just briefly mentioned that, we didn't discuss quite a few of those. I don't know where that piece of paper is going. I've got a few bits of paper in front of me. There's one. That's the different wrong one. I may have disposed of it by now, as I often do. Here it is. Yeah, we didn't discuss much about, many of the aspects of Haridas Thakur's pastimes. Even, he was really involved in the Jagayan Madai pastime and the Prasadam and the Shradapatra in Advaita's house, pre-Navadvip pastimes, which we hardly touched upon. We mentioned Harinadi just now. And even the very famous pastime, probably in one sense even more so, though not so quite on our level at this point of time, but how he actually gave Krishna Prema to Maya Devi. She was begging for Krishna Prema from Haridas Thakur. That's a pastime in of itself. And his departure, his elevated position as the spiritual master of the whole universe. And the fact that, we sometimes think he's, kind of a practicing devotee, but they all, they're sadhaka rupas, these great devotees, they appear in this world in sadhaka forms, sadhaka rupa forms, to practice and show us the practice as well as tasting it themselves. But Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, so not all of these great eternal associates do that. Otherwise, they come into this world to assist the Lord, so whatever he wants them to do, they do. And they manifest forms which are appropriate to the particular task at hand. So Haridas Thakur, we often think of him as being a practitioner, being one who achieved success by practicing. He fell down because as Lord Brahma committed an offense, and whatever, Brahma Mahatapa, who didn't wash his tulsi leaf at the right time or didn't wash it at all, or whatever it may be. We may have different, understandings that are correct but not complete, you could say. So Lord Brahma, or the Haridas Thakur himself, where were we going here? Oh yeah, spiritual master. And how he was associating when Rupa and Sanatan Goswami as the most intimate eternal associates of the Lord, Manjaris, very intimate associates of Lalita Devi, and so on. I mean, what can we say? There are 6 gurus. So they associated very intimately with Haridas Thakur. They even stayed together and discussed Rasa Tattva. They discussed intimate pastimes with each other. They're in Puri. They weren't just sitting down and let's chant 190 rounds or whatever that Haridas was doing, but they were also discussing very intimate, very elevated subject matters. Rupa and Sanatan wouldn't have stayed with him otherwise, although there's the other side, of course, to show that everyone can become a Krishna conscious no matter what your birth is, even if you are prohibited from entering into the Jagannath Puri temple or whatever it is. The Krishna consciousness is not an external state. It doesn't depend on externals. The externals are meant to help us to go internal. They're not just in of themselves the objective goal. We get caught up sometimes. This is our tendency. We get caught at a certain stage of our practice, and it's like, what do we say? What's the term? But, say it's like you feel safe when you're locked in that situation. That's okay, as long as we're open to advance. Not that we're, our goal isn't just to stay at that stage. And Krishna can do anything, of course. But it depends on our attitude also. We should want to advance in Krishna consciousness, really. That's what we're here for. We didn't discuss much about the cave and the snake and the this and the that took place, some little things there. And the benediction, we just heard about the benediction, so that one's fine. And some of his relationships with Lord Chaitanya and Puri, not much. We did discuss much of the poem of Bhakti Vinod. Many aspects which we didn't discuss up to now. So we don't have obviously time to go into all those details. So we're going to go now. Let's see. Let's have a little bit more of a look at humility. Humility, tolerance. Actually, there was one other slide. I don't know what happened to it. It disappeared off the screen. Oh, there it is. I'll just quickly go back because I will forget. I think this is the last slide. I'll have to, how to do that now? I don't know how to do that. I've got to, it's not allowing me to access it. Anyway, I'll have to read it. You won't be able to see it. I'm sorry about that. This is in regards to tolerance. Because as I say, I may forget it otherwise, and we're going one ahead, but they're overlappingly interrelated with each other. There's a famous verse in the Nectar of Instruction, Utsahad Nishtayat Dayat Tat Karma Pravartana. Nectar of Instruction, maybe verse 2 or something like that, 3. Maybe verse 3 of the Nectar of Instruction. Rupa Goswami says, you have to be enthusiastic, you have to be confident, you have to be patient, and so on the process. These are favorable approaches to the path of devotion. But I'm going to read something now, which His Holiness Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj said, and it's just one of our, you could say, we keep certain verses with us, certain statements with us, and it's important to do this. Certain verses at different stages of our progress will stand out. They're like, they're like mastheads or something you hold on to as we progress. And this is one of them, which is always there, by the way, this one. He says, this is Gaur Govinda Maharaj speaking, have patience and tolerate, quoting Rupa Goswami. Do not give up your enthusiasm. Do not give up your devotion. Stick it out in spite of all suffering, all rebukes, all blasphemies, and all unfavorable situations. Do not be defeated. Have patience. Krishna is placing a test before you. You have to pass it. Tolerate it. My Guru Maharaj A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada gave the same instruction. The last instruction he gave us was tolerate and cooperate. So many obstructions, impediments, sufferings, pain, unexpected things will come. Insults will come. No praise, all blame will come to you. Tolerate, 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 and cooperate. then you will pass the test. Nice words. Not so easy as it sounds, you could say. But we do experience some of this. Maybe not all the time, maybe not all of this, but it does happen like this. And there's reasons. This is Krishna's testing. Why? Because he wants us to let go. He wants us to understand who we really are. I'm going to go with a little definition here, if you will. We mentioned one already, Prabhupada said in Paris. But in the Bhagavad Gita, we see Prabhupada says in the purport in Bhagavad Gita 13.8, Prabhupada says humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction. There's the key word here is satisfaction of being honored by others. You can't avoid being honored, but we shouldn't be anxious to have the satisfaction of it. It's not being honored that's the problem. It's the fact that we are, feeling satisfaction about being honored. that's the obstacle. Or we're feeling dissatisfied when we're not honored. It's just the same thing. It's the attachment to a certain expectation that has to change. So when we're desiring like that, then Krishna gives a certain test to take them away. And Haridas Thakur, you can see practically every pastime was a test. Practically, whether it's Harinadi, whether it's Mayadevi, whether it was the prostitute, whether it was being beaten in the marketplaces, whether it was being insulted, whatever it was, it was practically everywhere. It was like it not being allowed in the Jagannath temple, so many other things too, the Gopal Chakravarti, so many different pastimes. You see, he's showing us how to relate, or, we hope anyway, in these different situations which we all faced. He got praised by the pure devotees, but he wasn't asking. He didn't want it. Pure devotees don't like to be praised. But, what can you do? That's inevitable. Madhavendra Puri or Jayananda Prabhu also. It's kind of inevitable because devotees want to. You can't stop it. But the attitude within, you just take shelter of Krishna. Please protect me. As Lord Brahma, one of the, we heard last week, Lord Brahma became Haridas Thakur. So even he was praying to that at the beginning of creation. Lord Brahma was for the potential capacity to create the universe. Lord Brahma is praying like that. Please give me. Please, my Lord, I may not come overwhelmed by pride in the execution of my duty to you. Please protect me, O Lord. Prabhupada also mentions here, I don't know, it's Prabhupada, maybe, or maybe Bhaktisiddhanta, I think it's Prabhupada, realizing the truth of the Vedic statement, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, is one meaning of humility. It's kind of what does that mean? Well, again, it's one of those, without humility, you can't realize that. But if we actually realize that and keep that in our hearts, that we are the eternal living entity. We're a part and parcel of Krishna. We're not this body. All the pride and all these are subtle, you could say, subtle misidentifications due to the bodily, identifying ourselves with the body, the mind, and the various characteristics and qualities which happen to be around. This duality, this duality of perception, causes all these other misconceptions in our heart. Our perception of the situation is wrong. It's based on a misconception. Our conceptions have to change. So this is one foundational misconception. We keep forgetting we're not this body. It's simple as a pie, but it's very difficult to implement in many cases. It's all related again to serving the pure devotee of the Lord and cultivating the right attitude and getting the mercy, etc. I'm just going to scroll over here a minute. Just give me a second. I'll knock that one off the screen. Here, I'm going to save that and scroll over to another one. Let's see, where are we? Here we are. Here, this is Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj when he was asked, what does lower than the straw on the street mean? And he gave various answers to this at different times. He said, to think that I am a particle of dust at the lotus feet of my spiritual master. That's a nice one. Always to think like that, isn't it? There's a bit kind of, people might think you're a little funny. But this is how the body sees things. He feels himself like that. A particle of dust. I am the servant of Guru and Krishna, is what is meant by becoming lower than straw on the street. So that we've already been discussing a little bit about that. A servant of Guru and Krishna. seeing oneself as the servant of the servant, but always being in this mood. What would Krishna want? What is my position here? How can I serve through the spiritual master? How can I bring pleasure to Krishna? Keeping that consciousness in mind, whatever it is we're doing, whether it's kirtan, cooking, cleaning, how to do that for Krishna's pleasure. This consciousness, at least to be aware of it, to become aware of this. I'm not this body. I'm the eternal servant of Krishna, servant of the servant. Keeping this in our heart always and trying to act with that consciousness. We should show compassion toward living entities. Develop a taste for chanting the holy name and serve the Vaishnavas. These are Mahaprabhu's three principal instructions. Jiva Doya and Nam Seva and Vaishnava Seva, the three main active, practical activities of Lord Chaitanya's movement, and that will help to evoke the inner consciousness which pleases the Lord. If we think ourselves lower than the straw on the street, we will not take shelter of duplicity while displaying only a pretense of humility. Now you'll see this is along the same lines that we read just earlier. This is just the expansion of it. We'll actually become humble and thereby eligible to chant. In other words, true humility means, we've read this, so I don't need to go into this any further. If we hear properly, then we will chant properly. This is another key of humility. I'm going to touch on humility if I can now a little bit. Certain aspects of humility. So hearing properly. Now, again, a topic in itself which could take all day. But we know it's the key in terms of chanting the holy name or preaching even. Prabhupada said, you hear nicely, you can speak nicely. If we hear properly, then we would chant properly. We have to hear first the direction, what to do, what to chant, how to chant, apply it, then try to hear the chanting. So on every level we try to hear. Then there's another type of hearing. It's not just a mechanical concentration, but there's a hearing within. And that's, of course, comes when we go through the other stages, but that's a little premature. So hearing attentively as much as we can, we make all arrangements to try to facilitate that if we want the change of heart. If we want to keep things as they are, that's another thing. But it's hearing attentively the holy name, and other things too, but especially in this case, we're talking about the holy name, which has this effect of changing our perception, changing our concepts. By hearing attentively. And with that mentality, which we heard earlier, that actually nothing is mine, whether it's the ability to do that, whether it's the means to do that, whether it's what we, whatever we think is us that's doing it, everything is not mine. Nothing is mine. Everything belongs to Krishna. This is humility, to see that everything belongs to God, at least to be aware of that everything belongs to Krishna and take shelter of him, and not think that I am this and I am that, I am clever and I am strong and I have good intelligence and I have this. Whatever it is, it may be there, but it's Krishna's. It all belongs to Krishna. So in other words, understanding also that Krishna is in control, not us. We try our best, and sometimes we think we're in control, but ultimately we have to understand that we're not. Krishna is ultimately in control. He's reciprocating, but ultimately he's the controller, not us. He's controlled by love, but we're not on that level. And however, by serving those who do have love, to some extent we could say Krishna is controlled. There's a very wonderful verse in the 10th canto. This is spoken by Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma says, to paraphrase, that in this world, we heard earlier, many problems may come along, and Lord Brahma it teaches how to tolerate. Toleration is not just about holding on, gritting your teeth and just tolerating, as people think of it in the material sense. Tolerate it. Okay, but what's the gain? What's the benefit? Not really anything, unless it brings us closer to Krishna. The Devotee doesn't just tolerate, it is more tolerant than a tree. The tree tolerates, it hasn't got much choice. It continues to give even if it's cut down. That's one aspect of it. But there's another aspect of it. The devotee doesn't just tolerate like that, whatever comes along. But as Haridas Thakur exemplified when he was being beaten in the marketplaces, he didn't just tolerate, he was chanting the holy name constantly, and unavoidably he was experiencing ecstasy and compassion. Compassion for those souls who were trying to kill him, and ecstasy, feeling the presence of the Lord in the holy name, and in other ways was there also, of course. So, Tatenu Kompam Susamikshmana, Lord Brahma wasn't just tolerating all the difficulties due to our karma, but he was in the mood that I deserve to suffer much more, just like Haridas said he deserved to suffer much more than a beating because he heard blasphemy on his going. It's a pretty, phew, you can hardly imagine our situation. But that was his situation, and not only that, but he was more tolerant than a tree. But he was glorifying the Lord, thanking the Lord, praising the Lord. He wasn't asking for anything. Please free me from this suffering condition. No, not at all. He was just praising the Lord. Thank you, Lord. You've given me just a drop of what I deserve to suffer until I come to my senses. And he's just praying, just glorifying the Lord, chanting the holy name, or glorifying with Uttama Shlok, with particular verses of glorification. He doesn't harp on his suffering. We're not quite on that stage. we certainly have to do the needful when we're in difficulty as much as we can, but at least we try to go in a humble supplication to those who can help. At least that much, and not just think I can do it my way. At least some kind of humility is beginning there. And if we go to the right person, of course, we're well situated, we're rightly situated. But he's taking complete shelter of the holy name. Such a person in this mentality, he says, that becomes an eligible candidate for entering the kingdom of God. We have to see this as not just so easy as it sounds sometimes, but this is by repeating that verse, 10th canto, 14th chapter, text 8, if you want to suss it out, and the phenomenal purport which takes place therein, which Prabhupada didn't directly write. Prabhupada does say this verse is the guideline for all devotees in our Krishna conscious movement, by the way. He writes that in Nectar of Devotion, but in the purport, the commentators, Hridayananda Maharaj and other devotees who put the purports together after that, and they pick up on the original commentator, Sridhar Swami rather, the original commentator on the Bhagavatam, who comments extensively on this verse and says that when a devotee, anyone, neophyte or otherwise, doesn't matter who, is practicing devotional service, and they appear to be going through, it seems like karmic reactions. They're suffering from various things which don't seem to go away, their attitudes or various kinds of events that take place in their heart which may have a karmic history. But it's not actually karma, Sridhar Swami rather says. It's not karma. It's Krishna's hand working. It may appear to be karma, and he may use what would otherwise be karma in a way that the devotee may be frustrated or whatever in his efforts. But in a way that suffering is there, whatever form it takes, as a means to remove the very cause of us having that tendency in the first place. Krishna is personally taking a hand. Personally. It's not like, it's just karma, sorry, you have to get through it. But that is also linked. It's not just karma, it's linked with the Lord. It's a test also, we've heard that already. But it's also Krishna's personal arrangement with people we meet, the difficulties we face, the situations we face. This is all Krishna's, you could say, hand, his will, to help free us from the misconceptions and the attachments and all the other obstacles that are blocking our love for Godhead in our hearts. It's all there. So this is humility. When we take shelter of Krishna, not that we try to fight it ourselves. We do a little bit, but ultimately we have to take shelter of Krishna. That's humility. It's not a theory or some kind of external practice that may follow in line, but it's actually this internal feeling of helplessness and just taking shelter of the Lord. So that's, as you can say, in one sense, a very significant aspect of this. Let's see if I've got one or two more here, which we can share. Oh, yeah, we mentioned maybe, I don't know if we did, but we mentioned the other day somewhere that to become humble, you associate with the humble. Association is the most significant feature, practically, of transformation of heart. And we receive instructions from the humble by their association, their example. We can become inspired or maybe follow their instruction, purified. Associate with the humble. Yes. Um, Rendering service is this today is tomorrow's Rathiata. So one of the key lessons of Rathiata was King Pratapparuddra and how he got the Lord's mercy, how he got his darshan. He rendered menial service, not for his own glorification, but in devotion. He was feeling so privileged to have this service. I'm so fallen, but somehow the Lord's so merciful to give me this menial service of sweeping the floor. Yeah. This is very, very purifying. I mean, just doing menial service. And we may be a PhD, but hard luck if you're thinking you're a PhD. You will wish everyone all the best. But, this humility of being willing to render service. We have no time. We could tell probably some incidences come to mind. But this menial service, very, very important. Let's see. Oh yeah, I remember one time in Vrindavan, Indra Prabhu came up and he said, humility. We were talking about this verse in class actually. He came up afterwards and said to me, he said, humility means up to the way the level I'm on. He said, I have no other hope of the Lord, Krishna conscious hope other than taking shelter of the holy name. I'm not qualified for anything, and certainly I'm not qualified for anything else but taking shelter of the holy name. I may do these other things, but ultimately only taking shelter of the holy name is my hope. Yeah, having full faith that the holy name, chanting and cultivating, developing our relationship with the holy name is our only hope. The holy name has descended as Krishna himself in this Kali Yuga as the only way. Prabhupada said this. Naradiya Purana says this. Harinama, 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 Eva Keva. No other way. Accepting that as our life and soul, this is humility. Trying to be attentive while we're chanting, humility. This is all part of humility. And when we chant like that, also tolerance, And tolerance isn't just tolerating it and carrying on, it's actually taking shelter of the holy name, even though there are so many obstacles in our mind. They will not stop coming. They enter like rivers in the ocean. But we take shelter of the ocean of devotion. We don't, get hung up on all the rivers. You never get there. They will keep coming. Sometimes you have to do a little needful work, but basically we have to take shelter of the holy name in all situations. We talked a little bit about pride, acting according to the Lord's direction, following the Guru, submissiveness. That's a good one. And I won't be able to find it now, but Prabhupada describes, Bhaktisiddhanta describes that humility means to follow. Pride means, you want to do it your way, independently. Whereas humility means we want to submit ourselves to the pure devotees of the Lord. Seeing oneself insignificant, we've seen that. Helpless, we've been there. Maybe to think sometimes we're not always right. Being open to correction. Open to correction. Now, honesty also is a significant factor here. Being able, in the right situation, to honestly reveal one's heart. Not necessarily everywhere and anywhere, but in the right situation. This is a very therapeutic means of letting go. In the association of devotees, we're honest about our situation and not trying to put on a duplicitous show. It's one of the biggest challenges in our movement, I believe. Certainly for myself, and many others I've spoken with or encountered, that, the world that we're in is not exactly open to this. Yes and no factors involved, but primarily a no. Everyone's, the whole social media more or less, the public, even devotees, are looking for every effort to tear people down, to find fault, to criticize. All this is really absolutely unfavorable. But that's the nature, that's the test which we face. Because Prabhupada said himself, he wrote, no one is perfect. Whether you're sannyasi, grihastha, brahmachari, or vanaprastha, whatever you are, no one's perfect. Everyone is, and is definitely going to make mistakes. And if I criticize you and you criticize me, we'll all go away and nobody will get anywhere. Every endeavor is covered by some fault, but we have to be honest. So honesty is a very significant feature, but where honesty comes in, there's different types of honesty. It can be misappropriated also like anything else. But let's take it in a favorable way. You're being honest with the sincere intent of becoming, let's say, coming to pure devotional service. You're not doing it to get praised or to be justified for your inability or whatever it may be. We sincerely want to advance in Krishna consciousness. So that type of honesty, even if others don't appreciate it or misuse it, is definitely very pleasing to the Lord. And He'll reciprocate. So being honest in devotional service within one's heart. And honest within one's heart will also include adopting the various means to at the particular stage which we're on, which are appropriate to one's what's called adhikar, or one's eligibility in devotional service. It's not just about, yakking away. It's any more about talking about humility. Or, I want to tell you that, this blah, 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 this thought came. And that they're continuing. It's more about traits which we have. Not so much that could be there about specifics, but certain challenges we have, ongoing challenges, traits, attachments, which are deeply rooted in our consciousness, blocking our remembrance of Krishna, and so on, drawing us away from the point. So Haridas Thakur, of course, in the case of the prostitute, he teaches that example there, but of course he's a pure devotee of the Lord, but that example is given there. Then Prabhupada says we should therefore pray to Haridas Thakur to help us also overcome that tendency to be drawn away by the objects of the senses, internal or external. We can see those objects of the disturbance as being an opportunity. We never look a positive way. An opportunity, because on our own we cannot overcome it. An opportunity to go deeper into our dependence upon the Lord to help us to move forward. So it can be taken favorably. Thank you, because you've helped me to take shelter of Krishna, whether it's internal or external. Thank that now I have an opportunity, because I can't deal with this, to take full shelter of Krishna, or more shelter of Krishna. Pray for his mercy. This is Krishna consciousness. This is surrender. What else do we have here? And ultimately, of course, we depend on the mercy of Krishna. There's no other way. Now our time is ticking by. We've only got 5 or 10 minutes, and we haven't got much time left at all. And we haven't got much time for anything else. Just briefly, I really wanted to go through the lessons which we could revise in many cases or pick up in many cases, but it's too long a list to even nearly get through. But we've mentioned a few of them, so be it. You have to try to pick that up yourselves. Tolerate. What do we have to tolerate in life? Well, one of the things is other people may belittle us. That's a tough one, for whatever reason it is. And it's the same reason we just heard. The Lord is trying to release us from whatever false concepts or attachments we have. Trying to release us. The heart has to become soft. Our hearts tend to be a little bit hard-hearted sometimes. They tend to sometimes be a little bit, let's say, whatever. Anyway. Yeah, I hope you get the idea. So tolerance isn't just about tolerating, as we mentioned earlier. People tolerate, they become hard-hearted, even harder-hearted. It's meant to soften the heart. So when others, sometimes they don't recognize us, they belittle us, they ignore us, whatever, put us down like that. It's difficult, it's painful. It's very hard to cope with. And, we can theorize, we can do what we like, but it's very hard to handle. And we try to find out how we can, Bhagavad Gita fundamental teachings of Gita are how to tolerate practically. Basic beginning of Gita, tolerate these dualities. Tolerate. Now we know that's because we have a little desire to be recognized. We want to be a little center stage. Therefore we get, Krishna. That means Krishna loves us. He's trying to help free us. In those situations, just being honest, approaching the right devotee, praying, and so on, not just tolerating, but taking some correct steps may help to overcome. And then what's the wandering of the mind, Bhakti Siddhanta, that we beat the mind 100 times with a shoe in the morning and a stick at night. Funny enough, there's one song of Bhaktivinoda Thakur which describes what that means in one sense. Don't have it here, but it means that we focus our hearts or hear about the pure devotees of the Lord. We remember them. When we rise in the morning, we remember the song with all the various associates, including Haridas, by the way, associates of the Lord. You remember them when you wake up. This helps us to, let's say, readjust and refocus in the right direction. So yes, sometimes Prabhupada would say you just have to ignore it. Sometimes we have to ignore things in this world for whatever reason. And we may have to sometimes ignore things that come along in our mind. Just ignore it. You can't fight it. You can't embrace it. What do? Just ignore it. They'll go away. They go away. Just don't feed them. We have to tolerate the urge. I mean, a big one in the nectar of instruction. We have to tolerate these urges. The urges of the senses, especially the good old wagging tongue or the chew, eating. Sometimes we have to tolerate these things. You walk along the street, you go past, and maybe you love cakes or biscuits or something. You got to tolerate it. You don't just kind of stand there gawking in the window. No one's around. Let me go and get some. We tolerate whatever it is. And the positive thing, of course, prasad should be so good that it makes it a little bit easier, of course. But sometimes we have to tolerate those things. We have to tolerate music, tolerate sport, tolerate these things. In a sense, we have to just, not go there. Try to avoid going to those spaces. Sometimes it happens. Then we have to come back again. Wherever the mind wanders, draw it back again. We keep a little endeavor there on our part, but ultimately, sometimes we have, not ultimately, but on the steps, sometimes we just have to keep ourselves away from these things. That's another aspect, isn't it? Avoid them altogether. That can help. Not be in the space where they're emphasized or available. Sometimes that's possible. So the tendency of the tongue to talk unnecessarily is a very strong one. Eat food which is not offered to Krishna. And all kinds of other aspects of sadhana. Sometimes we have to tolerate inconveniences. Sometimes we have to do things we don't necessarily like doing for the sake of, the mission or our spiritual master's desire, whatever it may be. And certain all the areas of tolerance, anger, these are topics unto themselves, and it's not time to go into detail on that. But these various urges, we sometimes tolerate them without being disturbed, Rupa Goswami says. And seeing the Lord's hand working in every situation, this really helps us. When we see how even the mind, it's not us. It's just a result of our karma, and it's that way our desire, and that which we're seeing in front of us, our consciousness is perceiving a particular nature which we think is us, but it's not. It's a conditional nature which we're covered by. So seeing the Lord's hand working in these situations can really help. It can really remind, if you can remember how amazing Krishna's energies are and how his hand is working in everything around me and within me. It's amazing. Let's see. Yeah, on we could go. And sometimes we just have to tolerate a little bit of pain, physical pain or whatever it is. We have to do the needful, as we heard earlier on, do our part, but take shelter of Krishna. Don't depend on other things to solve the problem. No one can protect us, only Krishna. In this way, and offer respects to others, preach according to the situation, recognize other people's individuality, as we heard earlier on from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, and encourage or respect that. Don't try to make them into something they're not. This is showing respect to others and respect them, of course, because the Lord's in their hearts, in everyone's heart. Any anger to any living entity is anger to Krishna. And go on about respecting other living entities. But our time is expired, and we're just open now. We have 10 minutes left. You said 10 minutes questions. Hare Krishna. If there's anyone left, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Mark, for such an amazing class. We're all still here. It was amazing. So I'd like to open
Let
up.
me turn my volume up. My volume must be down. Yeah, it's way down there. There we go. Okay.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask the audience if there's any questions, please raise your hands. Just before I get someone from the floor, I'd like to ask a quick question, please. So you mentioned about compassion. So we see that these days a lot of people go through really bad experience in life and they naturally become hard-hearted. And then that is kind of reflected in their behavior towards others. So how can we, in that state, develop such compassion so that we are not behaving in such a way towards other people and devotees?
Very, very good point. I probably everyone on the planet is probably affected by this in Kali Yuga. We haven't had a very good cultural upbringing in most cases. We may not even be situated according to our nature in most places. We may have had some traumatic experiences in many cases, to some degree in every case. There's so many, let's say, anomalies of this age of Kali, so many anomalies, so many difficulties, and the heart has become callous, or it's become, negative, or it's become critical, or it's become angry, or whatever it may be, at everything and everybody. So what is the process? How do we deal with that? Again, it's obviously every individual, every situation has its own uniqueness about it. Everyone's an individual, but how to get into a detailed answer to that? I would give a general answer. Somehow, whatever it may be, whatever state our heart's in, whatever traumas we've had, try to somehow or another come into the association of devotees and just participate in kirtan. Prabhupada said that, kirtan, that envy will go away, all this, at least for the time being. Try to at least experience the association of devotees in kirtan. It's the medicine for this age to cure all ills. Iti Shodasha Kamanam Kali Kamashanasha. All the ill effects of this age of Kali can be removed by Hare Krishna, chanting the holy name. Just keep chanting Hare Krishna and pray. In this case, it's sometimes difficult because we don't recognize it. If we recognize these are anomalies, if we recognize these are obstacles, if we recognize they are unwanted traits, whatever the cause may be, we may be good justification for this, by the way, in terms of the temporary world, the world of duality. But that's not the deeper point. The point is to become free of the cause and free of the being affected by it. So in that situation, we need to take shelter and pray. We cannot overcome these on our own, whatever it may be. My heart is so hard. And Haridas Thakur, you can look it up. Even he prays like that. My heart is, basically, he says, my heart is so hard-hearted, I cannot offer you any praise which is pleasing to you. We thought it. Hard-hearted means basically we're embracing various aspects of the material world in our heart. We're still embracing this, so our heart stays hard. Whether we're embracing blaming others, or whether we're, or just embracing the desire to enjoy the energies, whether we're embracing envy of others, whether we're embracing, greed for material objects, or whatever it may be. These are all various, various things which will keep our heart hard, keep it hard. We'll keep it hard. But in the association of sincere devotees, it's not any devotee is better than none, but we want good association. Good association changes our heart. Every learned man knows that the greatest entanglement is the association with material objects, and that same attachment, when transferred to the self-realized souls, is the cause of our liberation or freedom from this being hard-hearted nature, whatever the cause of the hard-hearted nature is, or the heart. It's hard, and hard means we don't want to change, by the way, depending on how hard it is. If we can recognize there's a need for change, we're making a good start. If we don't recognize it, we think everyone else has to change or everything has to be adjusted. People have to bow down to me and apologize, or they should be punished or whatever it is. That may go on, of course, of providential arrangements. But that's not going to help us much. We've got to see that there's some problem in me, not in everybody else. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj would say, when faults in others delude and bewilder you, look within and find your own faults. So at least some recognition that some change is required. Without that desire, without that recognition, it's pretty hard. So the first thing is we recognize it's a good start. Now, those who are thinking that the solution is a material adjustment, okay, they get the material adjustment. It doesn't do much good. It just perpetuates one's staying in the material world. You may be in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, it doesn't matter. So what is the compassion? The compassion is to try to somehow or another give people this opportunity to associate with the pure holy name, to associate with devotees, to associate with prasada, to evoke the mercy of the Lord. So the Lord will be merciful. Now the devoted, pure devotee's compassion, just like that Haridas Thakur, he wanted to, or Vasudeva Datta, they wanted to deliver all the living entities of the universe. They were willing to suffer. Look at Prabhupada's compassion. He put himself out to the deathbed. I mean, if you know what I mean. Out of compassion for the living entities. That's interesting. To try to bring us out of this hard-hearted world that we live in, this painful world, this illusion that we're in. It's like a horrible dream. To wake us up from this dream-like state. It's so, it's tough. Prabhupada said this is difficult to wake. Difficult to wake ourselves up. We cannot do. We need help. So the association of devotees that's what it's for. It just takes time, the association. We're also the thing about our situation. We have a tendency to blame other devotees for the associate or the movement, but we have to understand that everyone in the movement has a similar challenge that we do. So who blames who? There's no one to blame, really. This idea of blaming someone is itself putting up closing the windows. It's putting a barrier up to actually evoking the Lord's mercy to soften our heart. How does butter soften? By heat. We have to get in the fire of Sankirtan, and the heart will soften. It won't soften in the fridge. We have to get in the heat of Sankirtan, or the heat of devotional service. And gradually it will soften, depending how hard it is. It will melt. The heart will melt. Anyway, that's the whole process, isn't it? That question just about answers all questions anyway. So any other question kind of goes along that. The right association, doing the right thing in the right association cures all ills in one sense. And when I say doing the right thing, it's with this attitude. So going along with not just recognition and expect justification, no. But then you feel repent, or first regret. You regret you're like this. It's not just regretting. I wish it wasn't like this. And then you undergo the repent, or the procedure to change. That's repentance. Repentance is not only just recognition, which is usually what people think it is. It's actually adopting the process of change. That's the repentance. And that's not always so easy, because it will involve a little bit. It's like having a tooth out. It's not very nice. It's rotten. And there's a question of the pain of the dentist, or the tolerance of the pain of the tooth, and sometimes we opt the wrong way. Try to take some cover-up system to cover it over or something, so we can't feel it anymore. But it's still rotten. We try to cover over things. That's duplicity. We have to be willing to change. We have to have a willingness for change. Everything will come. A desire for change. I hope you get the idea somewhat. These things are exciting, but difficult, challenging. You have to be ready for a little bit of it. You have no choice. It's a material challenge anyway. We can't avoid it. The world is a challenging place. So better we undergo a challenge for the sake of, becoming Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have Jay who would like to ask a question. Jay, if you'd like to
Yeah.
ask it.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Maharaj, sorry.
Jay,
Thank
Jay,
you for the
Jay, Jay,
Lavita. Yes,
Jay, Jay, Jay.
Jai. Maharaj, just an advice I need from you. We talked a lot about chanting, but for a neophyte like me, when I'm chanting, the mind always wanders. How should I be controlling my mind? So sometimes what I do is I realize that my mind has wandered. So then I start to think about a pastime of Krishna or a form of Krishna, but then I don't know whether that is the right thing to do. So any tips you can give us, please?
Yeah, well, you probably are aware that Prabhupada said when we chant, we should just try to hear the name. But having said that, there are several places where Prabhupada has written that, in this case, yes, it is good to think of the deity. It is good to think of the pastime. You know what I often do? I got this, I know, maybe a controversial situation, but I really have respect for where respect's due. But for Mahanidhi Swami, and he recommended it, because it was in Vrindavan, that we, meditate. Have you ever been to Govardhan? If you've been to Govardhan, you've walked around Govardhan, and you've chanted, are you just forgetting Govardhan? No way. You're walking around the dust, you're seeing the trees, you're seeing Govardhan itself, you're remembering Krishna's pastimes in this place and that place. And maybe there's a few externals like the heat or the monkeys or different things that are there too, but basically we're trying to feel ourselves in the Dham. So when you're chanting the whole name, and it's not easy just to focus on them. And even if you do focus on the name Holy and Holy, you know what happens? Unending changes take place in the heart, and all kinds of emotions and thoughts come in the mind, which also don't exactly seem to be focusing on the holy name. But there are actually stages of changing our relationship with the holy name start taking place. And we mentioned three of them just now: recognition, remorse, and repentance. They all come in the heart. These feelings of being lowly, and condemning you, all the thoughts, oh my God, why did I feel, why did I relate to that, these thoughts will come as the humility starts to evolve through hearing. But when you're chanting and the mind is just so out of control, Manini Maharaj was making it works, I tell you. I mean, it's so nice. What's wrong with chanting the holy name in front of darshan of the deities, or in front of Govardhan here? We used to chant japa. The morning program, this is a missing link in our movement now, but the morning program in Bury Place when I joined was japa in front of the deities. That was the main part of the morning program. Japa in front of the deities between 5 o'clock and 6:30 or 6:45. Deity worship was 30 minutes long at most. And the rest of the time, everyone, even the Pujari up to a certain point, was sat in front of the deities or stood in front of the deities, looking at the deities and chanting Hare Krishna. It's so powerful. We hear about Tulsi. Yes, you're looking at Tulsi. You're not blind. You're seeing Tulsi there. You know that by her mercy, you're chanting in front of a pure devotee of the Lord. It's by chanting in the association of a pure devotee that the chanting takes on this different element, different quality. And when Govardhan, if you're remembering Krishna's past, not that we should purposely go out of our way, okay, now I'm going to spend the next 2 hours just remembering Krishna's pastimes. But your mind is wandering. And, bring it back. Bring it back somehow or another. All the rules and regulations are meant to remember Krishna. That's what they're for, somehow or another. Now, our remembrance of Krishna is not spontaneous at this stage, but it is still part of our sadhana. We try to remember him. Otherwise, what the heck are we going to remember? Is it better to think of sex life, or is it better to think of Krishna cutting off, the head of Sankasura or something? What's his name? Sankachuda, whatever his name is. Which is better? I mean, that's not a very pleasant pastime, but it's still Krishna. It is in one sense, but it's Krishna. Or you're remembering, Krishna playing with the cowherd boys or whatever it is. You have to see. But that will help you to chant more attentively, whatever it takes. to focus on Krishna. That's the idea. And of course, if we can actually just hear the sound, but we're not machines. We're not machines. We can get a computer to do that. We're not machines. We're conscious living beings with sentiments and feelings and challenges and you name it. We turn to Krishna, somehow or another turn to Krishna. And you can also turn to Krishna. My Lord, my mind is... I gave you... Well, we didn't. Haridas Thakur gave us a mantra early on, which you can repeat also. Or you can just pray to the Lord, please help me. My mind is wandering. And my Lord, please help me. Somehow or another we have to turn to the Lord. Somehow or another. So if you're thinking of... rather than just allowing the mind to wander and mechanically just bopping off the numbers, which is, by the way, better than nothing, but it's not very effective. Namacarya, Srila, Kirtan. It'll take a long time. So it's only by the grace of Krishna. Prabhupada has taught us, the main teaching of Prabhupada, don't get this wrong, by the way, his main teaching is to try to get us to think of Krishna, somehow or another. And you can't help but think of Prabhupada when that becomes your main objective, because Prabhupada said that should be our main objective, not to think of him separately from that. We sometimes get a little bit like that, but it's just that Prabhupada wanted that. Think of Krishna, remember Krishna. Why has he installed deities otherwise? Why so many things? Why so many stories? Why so many pictures? So we can remember Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Well, I really have to go because we're supposed to go on Harinam Sankirtan around the streets of Paris. It's already 1 o'clock over here and we're leaving at 2. So we're going to have to, I'd like to stay longer, but it's 45 after 1, after 12 or whatever, wherever you are. I don't know where you are. I just have a quick look to see if there's anyone left as to who you are. I think there's only 6 devotees left online. I can only see 6 faces anyway. And I'm one of those 6. Is that it? Or is there anyone else?
Can everyone turn on your video so Maharaj can see you all?
Maybe you're there. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I thought you could press.
Oh, if I remove you from Spotlight, then you might be able to see it.
Oh, there we are. I can see a few. There's 4 or 5 devotees there. There's Jai. Hare Krishna, Jai. Sunita. Oh, Hema, Hari Bo, Shama. All the way in Australia. Pranamasti. Sevanidhi, Ladini, Lakshmi, Tony.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam.
Hari Bol, everyone. Priya Bandhu, Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Maharaj. Dandavat Pranam.
Jai Dharma, you're getting a break from the gym. Rahul, Jan, who's that? There's someone called Janananda Maharaj on. I don't know who that is. Hidati Gurangi, Hari Bol, you tolerated all this time. You're amazing. Can't believe how you did that. Janavi, Hari Bol, Jamet. Where are you, Jamet? Are you in the kitchen or what? You look like you're cooking it up there. Different devotees are doing different, all the way from air. You're up in the air. Are you still in the air? Are you still in the air? I hope it's fair in the air. Sydney, London, I don't know where everybody is here. Brisbane, New York, maybe, I don't know, maybe Paris, London, Romsey, and I don't know where everybody else is from there, London. Anyway, wherever you're from, we know where we want to go. Let's just try to help each other to move along that path to our ultimate goal. We don't want to keep staying forever. And please Krishna. Krishna's pleased when you go back to Godhead. We want to love him. It's not that we want to go back to Godhead. Our goal is to love Krishna, awaken our love for Krishna. That's our goal. Whatever Krishna wants, so be it. But that's our goal. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. His Holiness
Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
All
Hare
good.
Krishna.